All right, I've got 5 p.m. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Ask Commissioner Stewart, please lead us in the invocation and the pledge.
Please stand and join us. Heavenly Father, again, we thank you for your grace and mercy. Lord, we come to you tonight with heavy hearts as we remember the families who are grieving in our community as a result of the events that happened this weekend. Lord, I ask that you comfort them with your peace. Lord, we pray for our community and our nation for healing. We ask you for that, Lord. For your word tells us that we will call good evil and evil good, and we pray that you turn our hearts back to you. We ask these things in your holy name. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Welcome. Thank you all for coming out tonight. If you'd like to speak, there are several opportunities. We have a citizens to be heard at the beginning and another at the end of the meeting. You can speak at either one of those, and also you can speak on each individual agenda item. Please fill out your speaker card with Miss Patty for each item, and when you come up, give us your name and address so the folks watching at home can hear you as well. Do we have any changes to the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, a few. You'll find a revised tab 12 in front of you. There was a few non-substantive modifications made to this ordinance, and staff is proposing this version for your consideration tonight at your public hearing. Tab 5 and tab 16 on consent are being pulled.
Okay.
Motion to approve the modified agenda.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Right, we're going to citizens to be heard. We'll start out with Mr. Gerald Fielder.
Hey, Jan.
Thank you, Ralph. Obviously, I'm here for the Lake Allen boat ramp. I was wondering if you had any news as to when you were going to start? No news? And I'm getting a little bit concerned about this. It seems as though that we've changed here and changed there, and got some concerns about it. You talked about, I understand there was size of motors that's going to be allowed, and this, and you know, questions about, are you saying that we can't launch boats with big motors at this ramp and other things, or are you saying that there will be none of those things on the lake at all, you know, with this? I've got some concerns about, as I've said before, seems like one side's having meetings, one side's doing this and all that, and it seems like to me the public's being left out. And so I'd like to ask the county commissioners if you would maybe have a public meeting, advertise in a public meeting to the public citizens concerning this ramp, and get some voice or get some heard from those that have lost the boat ramp. You know, if we can't move forward with this. Sorry to say, I talked to an attorney concerning this, and in our conversations, the attorney asked me, "Where's this at?" And he said, "Wakulla County." Oh, that's the good old boy county. I thought that was really sad that we're known like that, the good old boy county, and doing. I'd rather things to go by law and getting it right and doing it right. And just want to say one other thing. I like my president, because you know what? He's a get it done kind of guy. And that's what the citizens like in their elected officials. Let's get it done legally and get it done right. You know, if you're going to close it off, you're going to do that, then do it. If you're going to open it up and put it back to the public like where it needs to be, where it should have been left, and let's get it done. You know. And I said last time I was here, I was proud of you guys for the fact that you voted to fight that battle, you remember, of putting the boat ramp in. But then I began to hear of all this other changes taking place, and I wonder, well, Sounds like we're crawdadding. So I'd just like to encourage you guys to either get it done or not, you know? And again, to emphasize, if you close it, then you're going to devaluate properties down there, which is one of them's mine. And I'll look into that situation when it needs to be. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah, I do have one question. The best of my knowledge, we're absolutely not going to close it. But my question is, and we have a motor requirement of 25.
Not yet. All that's got to come back as an ordinance.
Well,
It'll come back for public hearings, so all that has to be fleshed out.
Okay, when that comes back, I think we need to make the decision. If I've got a 40-horse motor on my boat, and I also have a 10-horse on my boat, then can I put my boat in the water? In other words, there's a lot of folks who've got larger motors that...
That's something that we can hash out.
Well, I think that's something that we should do, is that, because if you've got a big boat and a big motor, you got to buy another boat and motor. So if they keep that motor out of the water and they've got a kicker on their 25 or less, then I would say that meets what we're talking about. So when you're doing that,
And if we do impose a limit, it's not on the lake, it's only on the ramp. And
See,
so
that's going to cause you another problem in the future.
all this has got to go through public hearing. And if it makes you feel any better, the people on the opposite side of you, they're saying we're doing this because of the good old boy. So we're hearing that from both sides.
I understand that, you know. All right.
Yes, sir. But we are trying to move it forward. Ms. Tony Mathers.
You guys for
Welcome.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, you just filled out a speaker card, so did you want to speak
Oh.
during citizens to be heard
No, I'm sorry, that was for my issue.
for your item? Okay.
Yes,
We'll
I'm
set that
sorry.
aside.
That's a rookie mistake. Don't worry about it.
Hey, that's okay.
Happens all the time.
That's all right. Or you can speak twice. You can speak now and then if you want to. Okay, very good. All right, so that ends our citizens to be heard, award and presentation. We'll have a presentation regarding EMS management consultants' performance. Mr. Steve King.
All right. Well, thank you guys for having me. Like I said, my name is Steve King. I am with EMS Management and Consultants. For those of you that don't know who we are the billing service provider for Wakulla County EMS. So I was here earlier with Marvin and Annette doing a business review, which we do quarterly, and they asked me to stop by, show you guys a little bit about where our performance is, how their performance is. So I just got a few slides here to run through with you. A little bit more about EMS Management and Consultants. We were established in 1996 by a paramedic. We are a privately owned company, and we're located in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Now, one thing that will set us apart from some of our competitors is that our sole focus is EMS reimbursement. So we don't dabble in any other section of healthcare. We currently have 220 plus clients covering 20 states, which include Florida, Georgia, and Alabama. So we're fairly well established within that industry. The next slide, just going through the fiscal year 18 projections. We always cover this during our review time with Marvin and with Nanette. The top part of the slide will show you the period to date net collections that we projected to have through April of this year, so for October through April. That's a really small number. I'll tell you what that says. 630,299. So that's where we thought we would be. The next box over shows where we actually are period to date, which is 709,784. So we were about 12.5% above where we thought we would be as of this time in the fiscal year. The slides below show a couple of just graphical representations of those same numbers. The one on the left will show month by month what we projected, and then the green bar next to it will show whether we were above or below that projected number. And then the graph to the right of that is a cumulative representation of that same thing. So month after month, where should we be for the fiscal year, and then the green bar showing where we are in relation to that. So once again, 12.5% above where we thought we would be so far. So a pretty good year. Any questions about any of that? All right.
What's the big spike there in March?
A really good month.
Yeah, I mean, anything special, any big push, or?
No, I think it was a long posting month. In the building world, that means you get more posting days than other months. And I think we just had an extra day of cash coming in, so to speak. But a very pleasant surprise. Would you not say? Okay. A few more highlights just to go through with you. These are more year-over-year comparisons. So you can see how many transports the team did in fiscal year 17 versus fiscal year 18. They were doing about 239 total transports each month last year, and they're averaging about 246 as of April this year. The monthly charges, or gross revenues, if you will, that come in each month also have come up just a little, from 202,912 up to 216,307. So those are the gross amount of claims billed out. As you can see, the next two line items, the monthly collections have gone up quite a bit. Now the fiscal year 17 average is a little bit skewed. We took over the billing during this year, so we were still in a deployment implementation phase. So we were starting to ramp up. I think we decided about 6 or 7 months in, we really started hitting our stride, and we've really come into it now, obviously, with the average of over 101,000 so far. The only other metric that I have here is the accounts receivable over 90 days. I find it particularly impressive that it's less than 1%. I don't know if any, I've been in billing my whole career, and I don't know that I've ever seen any AR that has come in with less than 1% that's sitting out there over 90 days.
The clerk's office did that big write-off, probably helped a lot with that, didn't it, Greg?
Oh, okay.
Nothing against you. Huh?
Before we move from that slide.
Yes.
I mean, I'm impressed with what you've done, but still we're not even collecting 50%, looks like.
Right.
I mean, what's the plan to,
well,
I know you have a lot of write-offs. I know a lot of it's Medicare and Medicaid, but what do you do to improve that?
well, you're never going to get to 100% is the important thing. I mean,
like just
for Medicare and
75%.
Medicaid, they're going to pay what they pay. If we charge above that, we're contractually obligated to take those amounts off.
Okay.
So that's most of what that is.
Okay. It'd be neat to know what that number is of that. I mean, if you could show that the next time you do that.
Okay.
It'd be interesting to know what that write-off, because of that reason.
Adjusted figure.
Yeah,
Okay,
if you would, please.
absolutely.
Okay.
So your collection efforts, are you going mainly after insurance providers or individuals or both, or?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah, we will send it to the insurance carrier as a courtesy to the patient, collect from them, and then if there's anything that the patient owes afterwards, then we would, of course, send some statements to them. In those cases where patients maybe do not pay, they do have an agency in place, and we send it off there.
A lot of people can't afford it.
That's right.
Do you take any steps, like does it go on their credit report, does any?
That's usually up to the individual agency. We leave that up to them. The contract with the agency is with Wakulla, not with us. So those are calls that they would make.
Annette, could you get up there and speak to that real quick, not from the audience?
I mean, my basis for asking, I'm also in the mortgage business, and we require a lot of people to pay their collections if they want to get a new home loan. So there's a lot of times that, we help satisfy some things like this just because they're trying to buy a house.
And that's exactly what happened last week, and they do put it on their credit report and everything else. We had a young man come in from 2016, right after y'all taken over, and, he said, y'all never sent me a bill. Well, we just didn't have the right address because he had moved, and, he wasn't interested in it, never thought again about it until he got ready to buy a house.
Mm-hmm.
And he was more than happy to pay the credit bureau, which is a different one from what they're using, but yeah, he was more than happy to pay it and make it right.
Good.
So yeah, they do put it on their credit report.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Are you done? Is that it?
No, I got a couple more. I'm going to blow by them though now. All right. Part of what we talk about during these reviews is what are some of the other performance impactors? What would make less money come in, or what, if possible, if more money could come in? So we always look at any changing trends in payer mix, or whether it's commercial, insurance carrier, or Medicare, or if it's uninsured, things like that. The run mix, which is basic life support versus advanced life support, and then just the volume of transports that we do each year. So we always take a look at those trends. We also have something called the ACR return to provider, which is basically just a communication tool between us and the agency, where we are asking questions about specific trips and getting that missing information and them getting it back to us. So we always want to make sure that those items are being worked. Missing signatures, the billing signatures are very important, just because if we don't have a signature from the patient, we can't bill out a trip. We can't make that courtesy submission to a payer. And then not medically necessary trips, we keep an eye on, just to make sure that the patient care report narrative always supports that those patients need to be transported by ambulance.
So do you have any figures on the not medically necessary?
I do. Let me, it's in here. I'll get to it. Here's a snapshot of the ACR return to provider. As you can see, there are no open questions. This is a common look. I know this is a snapshot, but this is a common look for Wakulla. They do a fantastic job of getting back any questions we have back to us very timely. So we never see any delays in claims submission. They being Marvin. I guess Marvin does this completely, right?
Yeah, Marvin does that.
Your missing signatures here. Again, as I was saying, that really does hold up the process if we don't have those billing signatures from the patient at the time of service. I did pull some data for the fiscal year. Of the 1,723 total transports that they have done this year, only 7 had any kind of issue with a billing signature. So again, that is a tip of the hat to the crew.
And that is a tremendous number, because when the net first took over, I'd say we were getting at best, what, 50% signatures? That's just because to show you, that's the first thing she chimed in on, and
Strong-armed them.
strong-armed
Mean
them.
woman.
Yeah.
Strong arm. I don't want to take the credit for that, because that was really, our guys went from not really understanding that I couldn't bill without that signature. They were just something that they had always done, and there was a time with Medicare especially that if you had ever gotten a signature for them, you didn't have to get another one. But we didn't have those records. I would have spent a long time pulling together those records. So, that was them, MC coming on and explaining, no, this really is the rule. And, our guys now, if they miss getting a signature, they get a disciplinary action. They take it that serious. No, that's
Marvin and Louie. They have done it. They've made it an emphasis.
All right. Lastly, medical necessity, we're going back to, does the patient need to go by insurance? So the data represented here shows for the last 12 months, so May 2017 through April of this year, 97.75% of the reports that we read had in the narrative something that would meet the medical necessity requirement. The reason that's important is Medicare won't pay for it if it's not deemed medically necessary.
I think there's a urban myth that a lot of people are calling the ambulance to go to the mall or get a ride to Tallahassee. And as I discovered, that's, I'm sure it happens, but it's not rampant.
It's not, it's not an issue. And that's what that's what we wanted to show with this, is that it's not being an issue.
Good.
All right. So that's it. Any questions?
We'll make sure the public understands that, they demand that we have a fire and ambulance, and as we grow, that becomes a bigger burden on that department. And it's good news. I can remember way back in the day, we didn't get 30% collection.
Right.
And this was years ago, but now it's much better. We appreciate what you've done.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And they've been a fantastic partner.
And it helped a little bit.
More than a little.
It's taken a big team, and MZ is part of that, but Lynette coordinating, and she stays on it and audits it on a monthly basis and make sure that everything's hit. EMS does a great job, and the guys now, they understand that, and it's also part of their union stuff, they have to do it. And also we've incentivized them by saying, as this grows, those funds are going to come back into here. So this is part of you're going to help grow yourself. So if you don't get that signature, that's just going to hurt you.
Yeah.
Are you dealing with paper or electronic signature?
How are y'all collecting that now? Electronic?
They can get it electronic.
Yeah.
It's attached on like that.
I think they do it either way, yeah. I know we've got tablets for them in the ambulance.
Right.
Yeah. I don't climb that deep in the weeds.
Yeah. Keep up the good
Thank
work.
you guys for your time.
Thank you very
Thank
much. That ends our awards and presentations.
To approve consent.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. No consent item pulled. General business, we'll go to item number 8.
There was money on whether I was even going to make it to podium before you made a motion.
You lost, huh?
Stop talking during your presentation.
Resolution 1115, 1155 outline the responsibilities of the audit committee. One of the things that the resolution 1155 highlights now is that we are supposed to give you a quarterly report on the activity of the audit committee. And so we are catching up on doing that. And so you have as attachments the minutes from the November 2017 meeting, the February 2018 meeting, and the tentative minutes from this most recent April meeting. And so,
For those that maybe not be into it too much, can you tell the public who's on the audit committee? And
the audit committee is comprised of a board member, whom I believe you are the representation of the board, and then 5 other members, and it is the constitutional officers. And the resolution allows it says the constitutional officer or their designee, and so it's those 6 individuals.
Clerk, sheriff, the property appraiser,
Appraiser, tax
supervisor,
collector.
elections, and tax collector.
And then you and the board, a board representation. There's other individuals in the room every meeting. I'm there. I'm sort of the secretary, if you will, to try to keep the minutes and keep up with what's going on, provide the financial background and feedback to the audit committee.
Hands there.
Jan's always there, and
I'm there.
Brad's there. Brandy's there. David's there. Those are primarily who's generally in the room. And what the audit committee is tasked with, and I'm not on the audit committee unless Brent tags me to be in his stead. There's about 5 or 6 responsibilities that the resolution outlines that committee is responsible for. Ongoing, it's primarily just to make sure that the financials are where they need to be, and that we highlight and discuss any concerns or trends that we need to address. We address not only the board's financials, but it gives an opportunity for the constitutionals to address their budget and their situation as well. And you actually will see in this this agenda item an issue where the most recent meeting, the audit committee voted to recommend to the board to increase the sheriff's funding this coming year, and the proposal was through increasing the rollback rate. So if you have any questions on that, the sheriff is in the audience, and Jan is here to address any specifics on that, increasing deputies on the road. And then you have in front of you the updates on the financials. And every fund is okay. There's only 1 or 2 that are on our watch list, if you might say, that we're keeping an eye on. We discussed those earlier, the road fund and the MSBU fund, primarily the 2 at this time that we're keeping an eye on.
Can we ask Jared to come up?
How do you differ from the audit that we had?
It's in November. In the November meeting, we discussed the financials for last year but it was on a preliminary basis because they had not been audited yet. And so we're discussing interim numbers, and then most recently, at the last meeting, you had the financials formally submitted to you.
We're not
Right.
CPAs.
So, once a year, we're looking at year-end numbers. And then the rest of the year, we're looking at the current year on a quarterly basis.
And then the auditor that presented to us how the county is doing,
Yes.
that's separate.
Well, it's separate in that it's his opportunity to speak directly to management, and this board without there being a filter. So you get to hear once a year from the auditor, and there's no filter through David, there's no filter through the clerk. You hear good or bad straight from the
His
auditor.
operation is basically separate than yours.
It's independent. It's an independent accounting of our financials.
It's all the same but different.
It's the same numbers.
Yeah.
But the audit committee is looking at interim numbers until that final comes out. And we don't go back and look at the final unless it's somehow substantially different than what we were looking at before, and it wasn't.
And the auditor's not going to recommend anything with to do with the military. That's
No.
not his job.
No.
You're looking more high level, and he's going into more detail.
Exactly.
He audits in detail. We start out at a high level, and if we see no issues, there's no need to dive into the weeds at the audit committee level unless we get into very minutia. We get into minutia in the meeting related to what's going on with, for example, the road department and the fire department, and how we can turn things around in those funds. So it depends on the circumstances or who has questions on what.
Very good. Sheriff Miller? Welcome.
Well, as y'all are well aware, the Wakulla County Sheriff's Office answers 100% of the calls. We don't have the luxury of having a police department here or any other law enforcement agency, so I apologize for not having everything I wanted to have today. We're busy with the murder investigation that happened this weekend, but I can tell you that the United States average for the southern region is 2.1 per officer for 1,000 people, for a population of 25,000 people. So in 2007, 10 years ago, our ratio was 1.93, which we were pretty close to that now. At this time, we're at 1.56. With the 5 additional officers with our population, that'll get us up to 1.71. I can tell you that I need these people. It's not I wouldn't be asking for them if I don't. There's calls holding for service that we don't write. I don't write. And I can promise you that is, the 5 people are a minimum that I really need, and I would ask that you help me with that if you could.
You're basically asking for another shift, and it's going to cost $300,000.
Exactly.
And the audit committee's recommendation was to take it out of the rollback rate.
And that's actually putting officers in the field.
That's officers in the field. Totally.
And he proposed it, and I'll take the blame. I'm the one that said, things are going good, let's go ahead and put it in the rollback rate and get it done with. In other words, instead of going to the full rollback rate, we can still reduce the millage rate, but maybe not reduce it all as much as we could and get this increase in service. It's not a new department, it's not a...
Not at all. And I can tell you specifically in 2007, we had a population of 28,400 something. We had 55 law enforcement officers, and 10 years later, we have 50, and population of almost 33,000.
So Randy, you're saying this would not affect the taxes? This would not increase the taxes? Is that what you're saying?
I'm not going to let Greg answer that, but let's say the rollback rate coming up because of increases in values is Randy, what was it? What's it going to be? About 7.5. So theoretically, to have the same expenses, the millage rate should be 7.5 next year. This proposes to make it, I think, about 7.75. So a quarter of a mil.
Still be a millage
It's still,
cut.
yeah, absolutely. What's the millage rate today?
8.0351.
All right, 8.0 is close enough. So it'll go from 8.0, instead of down to 7.5, it will go to 7.75. So it would still reduce the millage rate, but that would pay for it now, and it pay for it down the road, ongoing.
And it's adding, the key is it's adding people, it's adding a service. It's adding the service. It's not to keep up with
It's
government.
not forming a
adding-
new,
That's right.
river division, patrol division, or something like that, or a helicopter squad.
Not at all, but I'd like to have that.
But this is bodies on the ground.
This is bodies actually on road patrol, and, sometimes sometimes at night, on the weekends, if we have someone call in sick, or somebody's on annual leave, which, we'll have 4 people covering the whole county sometimes, so, that would give us an extra person on every shift, which will help us cover it.
We're not voting on this tonight, we just present it. I'll make a motion to accept the report.
Have a second. Yep. Any citizens on this, Patty?
Dan?
Further discussion? Hear none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. General business item number 9.
I'll make a motion to select and appoint Mike Stewart to serve on the Canvassing Board as a substitute member for supervisor of elections.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any citizens? Discussion? Good with that?
Probably never going to happen, but.
All right. Call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. General business item number 10.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a request for board approval of a mutual settlement agreement with the defendant in the matter of Wakulla County versus Sandra Sellers. This was a code enforcement lien foreclosure case. We do have a final judgment of foreclosure. In lieu of going to judicial sale of the property, we reached out and struck a settlement agreement.
Motion to approve the mutual settlement agreement.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any citizens? Further discussion? Hear none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Item number 11.
Yes, this is a request for the board's approval of an application for the reduction of code enforcement fines relating to case number CE 2016-2318 for property located at 49 Dakota Drive.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. And Tony, this is your item, if you'd like to speak.
Only if you want to.
Don't talk us out of it. You can talk us out of it now.
Get out of it.
That's what I'm gonna try to do.
Oh.
No. I just wanted to reiterate, my case that, I sold the property in September of '08 to Miss Joanna Belden, and the property was in immaculate condition. It was signed back over in my name in June of 2017. I was the lien holder of the property, and she defaulted on her payments to me. So it took me a while to get the land back in my name. And at that time, I had no idea of the condition of the property, but after it got back in my name, I was not aware of the liens imposed upon the property, and I've had it for about a year now, and I would just ask the board to waive all the fines and liens associated, including the attorney fees.
Thank you. Well, my motion was to waive it down as far as we legally can.
Which is the 279.29?
Yes.
I think the issue is we've got a track record of doing just that. And so if we didn't follow that, it's going to put us in jeopardy with other cases where we've tried our best to hold to the hard cost. That way the taxpayers are not having to cover the cost of
Plus,
that.
the ordinance tells us this is what the number is.
Exactly.
It's not arbitrary.
I second it.
We already have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Hear none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Sorry.
Or congratulations, depending on which way you look at it.
Better than it was, but I know, none of us would want to write that check. Thank you. Public hearing item number 12.
That one is a motion, or a request board approval to conduct a public hearing and adopt an ordinance that is amending certain portions of your mobile and modular home code.
Motion to approve. the revised version.
Yes, thank you.
Second.
Motion and second, citizens. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0.
And here comes the sign ordinance.
Item 13.
This sign
Standing agenda
ordinance.
item.
This is a request for the board's approval to conduct a public hearing and consider adoption of an ordinance amending 6-18 of the Land Development Code, which pertains to signs.
So moved. This is
Second.
This is the Hess Compromise, we call it.
Right. Have a motion and a second. Any citizens?
Actually, it was my idea, but I'll give you credit.
Further discussion from the board? Y'all don't want to talk about it for 30 minutes?
We beat this horse. This is the agreement we have, so let's go.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. That was the easiest one yet. No planning and zoning items, no commissioner agenda items. County attorney.
Just one brief announcement. The department, the Division of Administrative Hearings has relinquished jurisdiction on the Lake Ellen permit exemption that had been pending for final hearing on June 5th. So that's been sent back to the department, and so that matter is concluded. We will be bringing you a proposed revised ordinance at your next meeting for your consideration.
Very good. Thank you.
Yes, the Gulf Consortium state expenditure plan. Last week we met in the Gulf Consortium. We met in Panama City, and we've sent that to the governor's office. Took 5 years worth of work and holding 23 counties into the fold. And we finally submitted the state expenditure plan, which that means that funding through Pot 3 should begin flowing into the county in March of 2019. It's a big step for our state. It's amazing that we were able to hold all those folks together and keep some folks from South Florida from trying to grab the whole thing. So that was a fight. FDOT, just a reminder, FDOT is holding a meeting on the downtown segment, which is segment 3 of the 4-laning, May 31st at 5:30 at the community center.
That's a segment from where to where?
That's a segment from Lost Creek
Crawfordville.
Bridge to East Ivan,
The Crawfordville section.
the Crawfordville section.
And when is that?
That's May 31st at 5:30 at the community center. Also, Nanette has scheduled a litter summit that myself and Jared, we were anxiously awaiting to attend.
Litter Queen.
That'll be May 30th at 9 a.m. It's a publicly called meeting, so if y'all want to, any of y'all want to show up, you can.
Say the date again.
May 30th at 9 a.m. And Annette does a very good job with that. Also, to let you know, offices will be closed Monday, May 28th for Memorial Day.
What?
And we also have the celebration or the
We all go to that every year.
That's right. Yes.
You went last year, didn't you?
I don't go every year.
I do.
It's not a public meeting. The litter is.
The litter summit is
10
not a
o'clock.
public meeting.
I'm
10
sorry. I
o'clock?
thought it was. So.
Courthouse, 10 o'clock, the ceremony.
10 o'clock, yes.
Is it going to be hot this year?
Gonna be hot?
Hot.
Is it gonna be yellow flies? But, anyway, also, just to let you know, as you've seen a lot, we've completed a lot of amenities at our parks and stuff. You noticed, quite a few of those coming out in the past month.
Basketball court over at Hudson
Yeah.
Park. I was at Oconee Bay today, and the kids all out there playing basketball.
Yeah, so we've done a really good job of that. I want to thank staff. It takes a full team, takes everybody to do it. Thank you guys for supporting us. And, but we got more to come.
And Mike Turner.
How about the new DEP funds?
The
new grant?
Oh, yeah, and we also, last week, not last week, week before last, I went to, Apalachicola, with a meeting with, Northwest Water Management District and DEP. They've, agreed to go ahead and submit about $6.3 million worth of funding, to the county for continuing our, sewering.
And that's
Sewer
probably going to
septic
continue in the foreseeable future, I
That,
assume.
we're, right now, our plans are to continue it for the next 7 years, and they really like our partnership. We're one of the few counties in the state that actually spends the money, which they have a big problem with that, believe it or not. So, I told them, you just keep funding it this way, we'll keep spending it, so.
Good job.
All right, that's it.
Citizens to be heard? None? Discussion items?
None from me.
I have a question. Going forward on the rec park up north, I a lot of counties are contracting that out to professionals who do rec parks. They do them, they've got more money to spend. We would probably get a percentage of the gross.
It's all, those deals are structured differently in different
I
counties.
understand that.
Yeah.
But I think, I won't be here at that point in time, but I think that's something you fellows should look at, because they're doing one right now in DeKalb County at Stonecrest Mall. They're working on 200 acres, and I'll bring you that video of what they're going to be doing on that 200 acres, and it's just amazing what they're doing. Now, I don't know the ramifications of what they get, but one thing about it is the county is not having to spend the money. I don't think, maybe, unless we can use BP fund, I don't think we would ever have the money to spend to do what I consider a proper park. But if we go the way of having somebody else do the proper park and have us get a cut, because we're not going to have to pay anything for the land. So
we'll get there one way or the other.
Yeah, but you got to do something nice. And
oh, we will.
Okay.
I think you can see what we've done here in the past couple of years. It'll be nice.
All right. I'll bring the DeKalb County, because they're working at 197 acres, and it's amazing now. I think they have fluffed that a little bit. You know how the fluff goes.
That's Atlanta.
Yeah, but
They have a lot
they have a lot of paying customers.
They have a lot of paying customers that we will never achieve.
That's true too, but I think it's
their risk is very small at that.
Mr. Sheriff, I have a question for you, if you could come up. This is sort of a sensitive item.
Maybe you should whisper the question
No,
to David.
I'm not going to put you on the spot. I'm just going to give you, or make some statements and where you agree with them or not. We have a lot of people who have been convicted in marijuana. I have no problem with the dealers. I think whatever they get, they should, I support that. Sometimes I think we have, in the conviction of the guy who's taken a puff, sort of like Mr. Clinton did at one particular time. He didn't inhale it, but he took a puff. Those folks, when they have a felony, when that puts them on with a felony, it puts them out of a job. It puts them, they can't work. Nobody will hire them. They're pretty much destroyed for a long period of time.
Yeah, Jerry.
At some point in time, down in the future, marijuana will be made legal, one way or the other at some particular point. It's being done that, and I'm not asking your opinion, I'm just making a statement. But I was thinking, how many of these folks who take a puff, if they had a puff, would not go on to crack? Right now, crack can be manufactured in the back of your truck, driving down the highway. Very easy to get. Marijuana is very difficult. Well, maybe not very difficult, but it's more difficult to get than crack. But if those same people, they're going to do it anyway, if those same people, if it were legal, that they could buy the marijuana, quite possibly, or I wonder how many of those would not go on to crack.
I think what Jerry's trying to ask you is, pot really a gateway drug?
No, I'm not asking you anything. I'm just making a statement.
In your experience.
I'm just making a statement in that I think that a lot of the folks that get on crack do that because it's so much easier to get hold of. Maybe. You know more than I do about that. But that's basically just a statement I have, and I'm not asking you to answer anyway.
I was wondering what you were asking, but
I think you need to check
I'm not asking even a comment. I just wanted to present that.
Let me add something to that, Jared. That we've been talking, Walt McNeil, Sheriff of Leon County.
Yeah.
He's going to come bring a presentation to the ARPC board about trying to do intervention to keep people out of jail, other ways to serve their time or whatever. So I don't know if that kind of goes into what you're
But
saying.
I just think that
Saves us money when you keep people.
when you have a guy, you have to enforce the law, And the guy has taken a few puffs, and maybe he's a little bit high. He's not any more high than somebody on alcohol.
Possession of something.
Okay.
Jared, maybe a better question to ask since you've been called up here is, what is your percentage of folks in jail currently that are on some type of drug?
Well, I can tell you, just taking a puff of marijuana is not a felony. It doesn't change their life. I mean, if they get charged with a felony with marijuana, it's more than a puff.
Okay.
It's more than 20 grams of marijuana, but
It makes them a dealer, somewhat.
I wouldn't say a dealer, but but the ones, 90% of the people that are in jail for marijuana it's not a felony, it's a misdemeanor. So,
Okay, all
Or
right,
in
well,
jail for a misdemeanor?
yeah. And a lot of times we give them notice to appear in court, and they'll pay their fine and,
what is your ratio between, let's say, marijuana and crack?
Crack's a felony.
yeah, crack's definitely a felony, no matter how much it is, but, I wouldn't guess.
It's just my thought process that if a person could legally take a puff without too much difficulty, not selling it, but they might not go on to the hard stuff.
Yeah.
They might not. I can't.
Luckily, that's the decision we'll never have to make.
Thank you, Sheriff.
You're welcome.
They left and had a chance. From now on, when he's done with his item, he's getting out of here.
Bill Clinton took a puff and he didn't inhale.
I don't have anything, Chuck.
Listening now.
The only thing I wanted to add, at the last CRTPA meeting, I had suggested some time ago to our director that we need to take care of the part of Crawford Highway that's from the county line north. That wasn't even on the list. But we just redid the 2040 list, and now it's like number 6. I mean, it's funded, but it's scheduled, it will be funded. So it went from not being on the list to being high on the list.
From Crawfordville Highway,
No, from Wakulla County line north.
it's not funded?
To Blue Sand.
No, it wasn't even on the list to be funded. So it is now.
Well, it doesn't make any sense to four-lane it to Leon
That's it.
County.
That's exactly what I said.
And you've already got the easement up there, so how come?
Not the whole way.
You have it through the forest.
Yes, but it stops at what's that road?
You've already destroyed
Williams
some
Road?
houses up there.
I haven't destroyed the house.
I mean, the
Remember,
DOT
you are we now.
I know. Well, I'm just, we're here neither.
You are them.
Good old boy.
Motion to adjourn.
Stand adjourned. Thank you all for coming out tonight.
I always love talking to that first. Can't say them anymore. You are them.